gonna learn about these principles of designs that we've been talking about, and this is what you're gonna be basing all of your assignments, all of the projects that you're gonna be creating in graphics. This is what you're gonna be basing your work on. Okay, so basically this is like the structure, you know, for all of your work. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about some of these design elements. Okay. So basically these design elements that we're going to discuss today, they are pretty much the visual tools that you have available for you to work with, okay, as a designer. So they're pretty much, like we say here, the building blocks, okay, for your work as a designer. So we're going to discuss a little bit about these things here. The design elements here, the first paragraph we say the design elements are a description of the types of marks that can be made on a two-dimensional surface. So think about the elements as marks. Okay, so let's say you have a piece of blank paper and you're going to put something on it. It's a mark, you know. So those design elements, they're basically those types of marks. So they are your tools. We already talked about that. And the ones that we're going to talk about today, they're listed here: value, line, color, space, shape, and texture. So space is not really, strictly speaking, like a design element. But why do you think space is important? Yeah, go ahead, Maddie.
Sometimes when you're putting things together, things are like really cluttered and really busy. It kind of makes people feel a little bit stressed out. It's not aesthetically appealing.
That's true.
You want to like balance your space.
That's very important, right? So the space is essential. Like he's saying, if you don't know how to use the space or how to have balance on your space, we're gonna talk a little bit more about balance. But if you don't know how to do that, you know, your whole design is gonna be maybe unsuccessful, right? So the space is really, really important to learn how to work with your blank space or your blank canvas. Okay, so what do you guys think value is? Value is a little bit different from just color. We know what color is, right? But what is value? So can I have, for example, can I have Brian stand up here a little bit? Sorry. So he has, can you turn to the class? He has a shirt here that has a North Shore, right? Stamp on in the front. And what kind of color is that?
What kind of color?
Yeah, it's on the, it's blue, right? It's blue. So is it all the same value? No?
Light blue and dark blue.
You can see a little bit different shades of blue, and so we can tell it's different values. It's also the intensity of color. Okay, so let's say if you convert this to black and white, you're going to have different values as well, because one is really dark and the other one's a little lighter, right? So you have that. Thank you, Brian. You have that changing value. Okay, and then color. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit more about color, but pretty much as we were talking about the other class, you know, color can have a really great impact on you, like visually. Okay, so what are some of the kinds of colors that we see out there? Like if you think about, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the color wheel. Have you ever seen the color wheel? So this is, show your image here. Okay, so here's one. Let me get one that kind of has the secondary. Let's look at this one. Okay, so this is the color wheel. Better to see on your computer, right? so what are complementary colors? Have you ever heard of this term before? Complementary? Okay, let's try look over here on this one. Complementary colors basically they are the opposite colors on this color wheel here. So if you go over here, it's gonna see the purple is complementary to yellow. What about the blues? Orange. The reds? Green. Okay, so these are the complementary colors. Okay, so they're exactly the opposite colors. Now think about these colors together. What kind of, feeling you get when you put purple and yellow? You're gonna have a pretty nice bright contrast, right, with those complementary colors. Same for red and green. It's and it's a color combination that a lot of people use because it's very dynamic. If you want something that's bold, you go for a complementary color palette. Now, what about analogous? Have you heard of this term before? Analogous colors. So analogous colors, they are the colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. Okay, so if we say here, the blues and greens are kind of like analogous colors. So if you do your palette, let's say just purple and blue, right here, purple and blue, it will be a very analogous color, right? It's kind of like one kind of, like his shirt is like we can say analogous, or is a monochromatic, color palette, because it's just one color blue, but you have different shades of blue. Okay. And usually when you do that, the color that are next to each other on the color wheel, what kind of feeling you think you get? Can you go wrong with that or no? The colors are pretty similar, right? So they usually look really good together. It's simple, but it's a very good combination. So these are just some of the ideas here on color. We're gonna look at a lot of examples today, but think about that. Every color has a certain effect on the, emotionally on the viewer, and also how do you combine, the colors so they will look good together. Sometimes, let's say, red and green, okay, they are complementary colors. But let's say you're doing a work for a spa. You're doing a design for a spa. Do you think I would use those colors, red and green?
If it's a Christmas spa.
If it's a Christmas spa, right? So the red and green is very Christmas, right? So what kind of colors you would think about using if you're doing a design for a spa or something like this?
Color.
Light colors, right? Because you want to portray something that's what? Relaxing, right? Exactly. Okay, so this is kind of about value and color. Now, what about shape? There are a lot of different types of shapes, but let me hide this for a second. Can you guys think of different types of shapes, existing shapes? Sorry. Can you guys think about some different kinds of shapes?
Circle.
There's exactly, let's say two different categories, okay? So we have mechanical shapes, and the other one are organic shapes. So what do you think the difference is? Mechanical shape and organic shape.
Maybe like mechanical is really precise, like straight lines.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, right?
Circles.
So something like a geometric shape, right? What about organic?
Is it weave and flow?
Mm-hmm. So you have more like curvy lines, but they look very like expressive, like you drew it by hand. Okay, so those are the organic shapes. So let's see some examples here. I'm using Bridge here, is the browser that comes in Photoshop, so you can browse your files there. Okay, if you take a look at this chair over here, what kind of shapes you see here? It's more like an organic shape, right? This one. Same, yeah? Now what about nature? Look at these shapes here. They're very organic shapes, right? If you look at this design here, can you see the... they're kind of precise, but it's still organic. So these are some examples of organic shapes right here. What about here? Is this organic shapes? No, right? What about here, from nature? You see a lot of organic shapes. This is kind of lines as well, you know, but it's still a line is still a shape. It's just like a skinny, long shape, a line. Basically, that's what a line is. We're going to talk about lines next. Okay, so just for you to have an idea, mechanic, you pretty much know what it is. For example, you know, the shape of, you know, the tables, pretty much mechanic. Now we also have here actual or implied shapes. Okay, or also we can say implied lines. So for example, when you have let's say a car, you know, going in motion, and you wanna express movement, what can you use? You just draw a car and you want to show that the car is moving, maybe in drawing. What can you use?
Lines behind the car.
You can use lines behind the car, right? So what is the line doing in this case? Is implying the idea of motion, right? Movement. Very good. So let's talk a little bit about line. We kind of learn about, talked about shape a little bit, but let's talk about line. So line pretty much is a shape that is long, right? It's long and really, really tiny, skinny. So we're gonna talk about three different types of lines here. One is the contour, divide space, and decoration. Okay, so let's hide this again. So what do you think a contour is? Yeah, and contour can also be an outline. Okay, so think about a drawing that just has the outlines. Okay, like we were looking at these examples here, and I have some that this is a contour. So you just see the outline forming a, you know, an object. So you see that all of these are only lines. Okay, so as you combine these lines together, you get the shape of the airplane. Okay, what about here? Right. It's only lines, right? There are some that a little darker, some shapes in between, like here. But basically, look at this whole drawing is just lines. Okay, there is not too much of highlights, shadowing, you know, highlights. So basically it's all lines. Here's another example here, just outlines. So lines creating the drawing here. So how do you call when you have these lines like on the wheel here? These lines forming, let's say, some different values or shading on the object. Helen, you know how this is called, right?
What's it called?
Uh-huh. When you do just lines. Uh-huh, exactly. So it's cross-hatching, right? So you use basically lines to show that, to give an idea of 3D. Okay, so look at this tire here. Does it look like it's a little bit 3D? It does, right? But it's just, they didn't paint. It's just lines here giving you that notion, okay? Here's another example here, cross-hatching. This picture is small, but it's really nice, the quality of, it's just lines forming all this texture here on the face and all that. It's really interesting. This one, very simple drawing again, outlines or contour. And so the second thing you can use line for is to divide space. Can you think about lines used to divide space? Let's say you're working on a magazine layout. Okay, so if I open this magazine, can you see some lines here dividing the space? This is up the first page that I opened. How many lines you see? There's one here, right? One here, one here. What about the blocks of text? You see the blocks of text? What is in between? It's a kind of like an invisible line that's formed by what? By the negative space, right? You see that white line in between. So it's dividing space here in this case, okay? So line is also used to divide space. And then the last one, line is used for decoration. Can you think about line being used as decoration? I'm going to show you some samples here of some posters, some things. Okay. Because line is pretty much is a very interesting element of design. So here are some different types of lines. So even a dotted line is considered a line, right? This is more like a wavy line. This one has a gradient, but they're all lines. This one is kind of more like a rough line with rough edges, more like a spontaneous type of line. But let's look at this example here on the bottom. Okay, so we talked a little bit about this last class, but let's see if you can tell the difference now that they are side by side. The first one here is the horizontal line. So what kind of feel you get from a horizontal line again? Stable. What else? Calm. Peaceful, you said, right? Exactly. Now look at the diagonal right next to it, the diagonal line. What kind of feeling you get from that one?
Falling from the sky.
It's falling?
Falling from the sky.
Falling from the sky. What else? Is it more like dynamic? Is it more active? Sorry. Okay, what about the next set over here, the vertical? Look at these vertical lines next to each other.
Skinny.
Skinny. What else? What kind of feeling you get from the... Usually vertical lines, they make everything look very organized, right? Do you see that? The lines next to each other, very organized, and it's still, I think, kind of calm, but And what about the last one, the wavy lines here? The curved lines. Usually you use this kind of lines when you want to imply what? Huh?
Water and fish.
Water?
Water.
Oh, water, exactly. Water is like movement, right? Because it's something that's constantly moving, right? Water. Or flowing. If you're looking for a flowing design, you're going to go with the more curvy lines. So you're going to get movement, flowing, this kind of feelings with the curvy lines. Okay. Can we use line as texture? Some of those examples that I showed you before, like that guy with the afro hair, really cool texture right on his hair. This is all from using lines. What about here? Is the lines creating a texture to this wall? Really cool texture, right? And what kind of lines do you think those are? They are curved lines, or maybe they're like we're talking about the organic shapes. They're also forming organic shapes there, right? And creating a lot of texture in this case. Let's see these other examples here so you can see how you can use line on your work as one of the elements of design. Let me switch here. So these examples here, I scanned some pages from that book that I put as optional for you, that talks about the design elements. Okay, so let's look a little closer to the examples here. So this is a poster, okay? And you see the lines creating what? What kind of shape is this? Or the first one, the black one here. Okay, what is that? A swan, right? Is this exactly the shape of a swan? No, right? But can you see it when you look at the lines? You can. So you see how you don't necessarily need to have exactly the shape, you know, that it is, but the lines here are implying the swan. Okay, so how do you, I don't know, what kind of style you think this poster is? Is that what? Mechanical? It is very, like the lines are really precise, right? I think that's why you're saying that's a mechanical drawing. But what I was trying to get from you, maybe like the style is all very clean, right? Look at the text. Can you even notice that they're using text on the poster? The type? Look how small it is. But it is there, right? So images inspired by nature, and then an exhibit of selected, I don't know what it is, graphs. So it's kind of like an art exhibit or okay, so what do you think is interesting about these lines here? Organization, right? They're so organized, they make the design look all very, very, very clean. Okay, what else? There's another thing that I think is interesting there. You can probably see more clear on your computers than here on the screen.
The reflection on the bottom.
The reflection. So what happened to the lines on the reflection there on the bottom? They're wavy. Okay, so you know that this is what?
Water.
Water. right? Like Marnie was saying. Okay, so very, very clever. Okay, what about this other one here, right next to it? What kind of lines you see here? Are they very precise or no? They're not, right? They're very different from the other ones. So they're very expressive, like you drew with your own hand, with pencil. And this is actually what they did. They drew it on a piece of 4 by 6 paper like this, and then they enlarge it to make it a poster. But they drew it by hand with a pen. Okay. Let's see these other examples here. Very interesting. Sorry. Wrong one. Counterclockwise. Okay, let me zoom in this poster here. Very interesting. Okay, first thing we see here, remember we're talking about colors? What kind of colors you see on this poster?
Mostly cool.
Cool, uh-huh.
What were they, or is it analogous colors or something? What is it called again?
Analogous colors.
Spell that.
It's ANALOGOUS. So in this case here, yeah, you have the different shades of blue, analogous colors. What about the little warm color there? Is implying what?
Sunset.
Maybe a sunset, right, or a sunrise. Okay, so you have that contrast of the cool and warm colors here, right? Is the use of space good? Look at the use of space. It's kind of nice that this wave is not really centered, right, or right here in the middle, because you have what? The white waters here are forming to what? Birds. Look how interesting is that. And then you have this bird flying, but you have also space, like the bird is not right touching the edge of the poster, so it looks like the bird is, enclosed, or so you have that space here for the eye to move, or for the bird to fly. So it's nice to have this whole space here on the top. You see that? So you have that. Now look at the way these lines here, since we're talking about lines. Look at the way these lines are gonna guide your eye. You're gonna come this way, and then your eye kind of goes like this direction, right? Now, do you see many lines on this poster? No, where are the lines? On the wave, right? And they're suggesting what here? The movement, right, of the wave. Okay. Now, when I look at this idea here for the poster, the white water becoming birds, I remember this artist that he's very famous. His last name is Escher. I don't know if you guys heard about this guy. I have some samples here of his work. But he's very famous for working with positive and negative space. So look at this work over here. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Let me try to make it bigger. Okay, what do you see there on this picture?
Bird and fish.
The birds. So I think you actually start with the fish, right? Or maybe start with the birds, nobody knows. But look over here, the space in between the fish, you start seeing the bird, right? And then the space in between the birds, you start seeing the shape of the fish right here. Very, very interesting, yeah? Okay, so this is what one of the other things too that you study in design is positive and negative space. What is positive and negative space? Positive. There you go.
Positive is the space where the thing is there, and then negative is the space behind it.
Yeah, pretty much the background.
Vice versa.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is, okay? So that's your positive and negative space. And in design, it's very important to learn how to work with that, you know, the positive and negative space. You don't necessarily need to create images like this guy, you know, that's creating this very cool, interesting shapes from the negative space. But it's very important that you know how to utilize your positive and negative space. Like I was showing you here. Like if you look at this, can you see some negative space around the image right here? You see a lot of negative space. And why do you think they leave all this negative space around that picture?
To make the positive space stand out more.
That's true.
Make it pop.
So you see how this image really stand out? Now these ones, they don't have too much space around it. Do you have the same feeling? Sorry, here. On these ones here, they don't stand out as much, right? So the negative space here is kind of framing that picture. Okay, so that's a cool one. And what's the theme of this poster here?
Peace.
Do you think the design illustrates the theme? Does, right? What is one interesting element that they use here to represent peace?
Bird.
The bird, right? The dove. Okay, look at this first one here. Should I zoom in a little bit? Okay, this poster is probably of what?
Instruments.
Instruments. Maybe it's a poster for what? What kind of poster you think this could be?
Concert.
A concert? Exactly, right? Or maybe like a school that teaches music, right? And how are the instruments created here in this poster? It's just lines. Can you see that? It's just basic lines, creating the stylized instruments here. Okay. Now, what else you have here? Can you see what the color is creating? The colors dividing the space into different shapes, right? These rectangular shapes here. So you have the warm colors again and the cold colors, kind of complementary in this case. Okay, what about this one here? Okay, what kind of poster do you think this one is?
Olympics.
Olympics, yeah, that's right. How do you know it's Olympics?
We have 5 circles.
The 5 circles, exactly. But what kind of Olympics? Huh?
Winter.
Winter. How do you know that?
Mountain.
See how just the shapes and the line is communicating to you all this information. So just the 5 circles, you know that's Olympics, right? And then the line that you have on top here, it's forming what? The shape of a mountain, right? So it tells you all the information already about the event. So very simple poster, right? They don't even need to write the name of the event. It's just the graphics there telling the story.
Which country was it in?
The 2002, I don't know, do you guys know?
Salt Lake City.
Was that the Salt Lake City one?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So this was the official logo, yeah?
No.
No, no. I don't know. Oh, it's been that long already, yeah? 8 years. Wow. Okay. And then we have this last one here. Let's just take a look at this last one. Okay, this is again lines creating more like a drawing, but then the drawings here, it's not really perfect, right? Or really precise lines, and it looks like they're saying, what's the matter? You're troubled. And you see how the drawings, the lines kind of tell you about that? Because they're not very precise or totally organized lines, right? Even the background is kind of messy here. It's kind of busy or cluttered. Is that? Anxious, right? When you look at this, because it's so busy and you have all these lines, it looks like the couch is shaking, right? Okay, and then this last one here is actually, this is a series of ads for this company here, Oracle Mobile. Okay, so it's a series of ads, but look how they're using the elements from their logo here to create these different symbols, like you, us, and then build, so it's you and us combined, right? And then e-business, so you got everybody connected here. And then mobile, you have this other graphics here. But look at how the graphics are used here to communicate. And basically they're just lines or, shape here. Usually when you have a series of posters like this, it makes it very effective because you can play with the whole idea for the campaign. You can play with different concepts. So usually really nice working with a series of posters. Okay, let's go back to our elements here. I think we kind of covered line pretty well, and we're going to change here, talk about contour, dividing space, decorating. And line quality, it's pretty much if the line is thick, thin, if it's dark, solid, broken. So those are the qualities of lines. And we kind of look at the examples of the different types of lines. So now we're going to talk a little bit about space. I know we've been discussing space a little bit. And one of the things though that is very, very important, and it's something that you can always be safe, You don't always need to try to fill out the whole, space with things, with something. I usually see sometimes people try to do that, right? They have the space and they figure out a way to fit something in to fill the whole space. So they don't stop until they fill the whole space in front of them. Do you think that's always good, or what do you think about that? Like this poster, for example, here, I think is an ad, right? This is interesting. It's a lot of stuff, right? You're really trying to fill out the whole space, bottom, top. So it's very busy. So now, when you have something that's a little bit more clean, something like this, How's the impact here versus that one that we just looked? It's a little bit better, right? So you have some space around so you can focus instead of, you don't know where to look, your eyes are kind of lost. So you have,
That's what they're going for, is to try to get you to spend more time looking at their ad.
looking at the ad, yeah.
If you look at an Apple ad, like a Macintosh, all it is just a logo and a picture of like an iPad or an iPod or something like that.
Sure.
But then if you look at like a cigarette company's ads, like Marlboro or something, they're so busy that you spend way more time looking at the Marlboro ad than you would the Apple ad.
That's
Kinda
true.
what they go for sometimes. So I think it's like, it depends on what they're going for.
And it does, right? It can be as simple as something like this. Look how simple that is. Like you're saying, just the logo Apple in the middle of the page, Or can be as something very complex, very elaborated that will make you, spend time looking at it. For example, this one is a little bit more complicated, right? You have a picture and a lot of different things going on there. So it really depends on what you're doing, right? So you don't always necessarily have to physically fill the whole space, okay? And so it's a design choice, basically. That's what it is, okay? So when you're talking about space in art, there's a word that we usually use is the picture plane. So if it's a 2D, if it's a two-dimensional design, you usually have that picture plane is a 2D. Like in the computer, it's a two-dimensional design, right? It's flat, so there's no 3D. It's just like if you're looking at a canvas or a painting at a wall. This is basically what the picture plane is. Okay. Flat space is if you have pictures or elements, they appear to all be on the same picture plane. For example, there's no depth. You don't see perspective. It looks like everything is on the same picture plane. So that's a flat space. Okay, everything appears to be side by side. For example, everything side by side, right? You don't see perspective here, right? Okay, and so sometimes you're gonna have lines creating you some perspective on the space. So you're gonna have the vanishing points creating what? Like an illusion of perspective. So you think there is depth, but it's a really flat surface, right? But the lines are implying the depth. Okay. Another thing too that we can do with spaces overlap objects. So when you overlap objects, sometimes you think like one thing is in front of the other. Okay, or and it might be just, if it's just design, like in this case here. Let's see this illustration here. The guy's holding a pen. So does it look like the pen is in front of him? They're all in the same plane, right? But you have an idea of perspective. Why? Look how the pen goes from small to bigger, right? Right here. So it looks like the pen is going towards you, right? So you have the illusion of perspective from the overlapping objects and also the way the lines are going. So what about if I want to have something look three-dimensional on a drawing? How can I achieve that? How do we do that, Helen, when you want to make something look 3D on a 2D surface?
Create depth.
Create depth? How can you do that?
Use are you talking about graphically?
Yeah, or drawing, any type of drawing. Shading, yeah? Let's see here. If you look at this illustration here, look at your monitors, not because this one is burned out. But look at this ball here. Does it look 3D? But it's really flat, right? Why is making it look 3D? The shadows and what else? The light, the highlights, right? You see how you have this highlight right here, and then the transitional, or the what we call the mid-tones or mid-values, and then the shadows here on the bottom. Now, if you notice here on the bottom, there's a reflected light. You see how it's lighter here on the bottom? That's usually reflected from the surface. Okay, so if it's sitting on a white surface, you're gonna have that reflected light. Okay, what about this here? Cast shadow. So if the light is coming this way, the light is gonna project a shadow where? Right here, okay? On the opposite direction here. So this is how you can make something look three-dimensional in a flat surface, right? It's basically giving the illusion of light by using shadows, highlights. Now, think about if you're familiar with Photoshop or Illustrator, what kind of tools you can use to do this?
Shade,
Or to create some kind of
gradient tool.
gradient. Okay, we're going to learn about the gradient tool. So you can do this kind of transition of values that will make things look three-dimensional. Okay, so we're talking a little bit about perspective here. Let's look at this just to understand how, just lines, they can give you the idea of perspective. Linear perspective is basically when you have the vanishing point like this, that's the linear perspective, okay? So you see here, you're moving the vanishing point, how you have a totally different perspective, the angle there. It's the same location, same place, okay? Now what about this one? What do you think it is? It's the same telephone pole, but the horizon is different. So this one you'll probably be looking from which direction? The first one. Up above, yeah? This one's kind of eye level. This one, I don't know. That's floating. But it looks like,
The shadow is still
yeah.
there.
Oh yeah, that's true. So probably really low on this one, right? It looks like the pole is floating. Now, there's this atmospheric perspective here. Now, think about sometimes when you look at a distance, those mountains here, right behind the school. Sometimes you see the mountains that are far away. How do they look? Dull. The color is dull. What else? How's the value? If you compare the value, the ones that are closer.
They're darker.
Which ones are darker?
The background.
The background. Usually they start getting lighter, right? When it gets further away, they get a little lighter, and they're a little bit more dull, right? So that's the atmospheric perspective that we're talking about. Very interesting because it's all lines, right? So if you look around you in nature, you're gonna see lines everywhere. So today, before I came to class, I had to go to the Secret Island. That's where Halem works. Yeah? So I went to. Have you guys been to Secret Island?
Where's that?
It's a secret. So a lot of people don't really know about the place, but it's in Caneo Hibaikualoa Range. But you have to take a boat, in order to go there.
The biology, the thing for marine biology.
Marine
is like a
biology.
lab out there. That's like.
It's really close here to the to us, Kualoa Range.
Yeah.
Do they have any biology thing there? I don't think so, right?
It's just
A fish pond.
fish pond.
It's a fish pond, yeah. But it's really cool because when I got out there, because I usually drive drive over there on Cam Highway, and I always love looking at the mountains, but they are really close, right, when we drive over there. So it's kind of hard to see them. But when I went out with the boat, you know, in the water, and I looked back at those mountains, I was like, whoa, you know, it's beautiful, right? Looking back at those mountains, because you can see the big picture there. So you see, it's very interesting, because you see the lines on top, they're very what? Curvy, organic, more organic lines, right? And then you have the horizon. How's the horizon? Straight line. So you have that combination, you know, but it's really good when you see those two together, you know. It's a straight line, organized, and then you have that wavy line of the mountains. So really beautiful. Try to start observing those things in nature. And then the last thing we're going to talk about here is texture. Okay, so let's talk about these two types of textures. One is the tactile one, is the one you can touch. Okay, so for example here, can you guys see any texture here that you can touch? Look at your chairs. Do you have a texture on your chairs? You have. Can you touch the texture and feel it? Okay, now there is a texture called visual texture. Like if you look on your desk here, there's a little bit of a texture, right? But it's just visual. It's like painted on this material here. So what are some other textures here that you can see? They're just visual. They're not really something you can touch and feel the texture. So if you look at this book, you're going to find lots and lots of examples of, you know, just visual texture. Something you cannot touch, but the texture is there, you know. And this is basically what you're going to be working on with design. It's just visual texture, so it's an illusion of texture. So texture can go from something very subtle to something very, you know, bold and complicated. So what about pattern? What's the difference between texture and pattern?
Pattern is like organized.
It's more organized, right? It's a motif, kind of recognizable. Let's say, recall Marnie. She has a pattern right on her top. Is that a pattern? It is, right? What about this here? Sorry, can I use your Susan? Getting here.
Pattern.
It's a pattern, yeah.
But can it be both? Like that's kind of a texture too.
Yeah, it does actually has texture. If you take a look, you can even feel the texture here on the. It's not really smooth, but it has a texture. Okay, so that would be the texture, and this is more like the pattern that the texture. Sorry, forgot to turn it up. It's a pattern that the texture is creating in this case. Okay. So I want you to take a break now. So we've been talking a lot. I brought these books. These are called Communication Arts. So usually they publish this annually, and some are a little older here, but you're gonna find samples here of design and of photography, things that are selected, the best designs from, you know, that particular year. So I wanted to look at this and kind of recognize some of these elements that we talked about: shape, texture, line, color, value. It's always good to look at examples and say, oh, okay, this is how I can apply texture, you know, to make a design interesting, or, you know, to come up with an interesting illustration. Or so it's very good that you look at other designs from other people. So when you're out looking at magazines, try paying attention to those details that we talked about today, the principles of design. They're not, like we mentioned the first day of class, they're not really the details, right? They make the whole design, those principles. So try to start paying attention to those things. You know, even ads that you see, you know, posters every day, you see posters everywhere. If you go around here on these bulletin boards, you see, you know, dozens of posters. And try paying attention to designs that other people are creating and how they're using those elements of design. Okay?